Culture tells youth it's your right to engage sexually whenever you feel ready, as long as you do so safely and consensually. Should we as parents be concerned about our children being sexually active? In this video, we're going to examine that very issue. Hi, I'm Phil from Peace, where we equip parents and youth leaders to guide children and youth to make optimal sexual health decisions. If you are new to the channel, be sure to click the subscribe button. If you are a parent of a young child, be sure to listen to the end where a resource will be introduced that you will find very helpful to begin developing optimal sexual character in your child. Welcome to our introductory video in the Targeting Success for Youth series. When it comes to raising our children, the goal is to get them from the island of childhood to the shoreline of adulthood where they can begin to achieve their goals. Training in a career, securing employment, many will marry and have a family and grow spiritually. One of the most important tasks for parents and youth leaders is to guide the child through the risky waters of the youth years where sex, drugs, alcohol, and porn can negatively impact the future of the child physically, psychologically, relationally, and economically. In this video, we will briefly address 4 questions. For those who would like more details, these questions will be examined upon follow-up videos. Question 1. Is youth sex a risk? Are youth sexually active? What are the approaches used to guide our youth in this important area of life? And fourthly, who should be guiding our youth? Question 1. Is youth sex a risk? When this question is asked, the first thing everyone thinks about are the physical risks, pregnancy or acquiring a sexually transmitted infection. Risks that youth are told can be addressed by using a condom. In addition, however, there are many other detrimental social, psychological, relational, academic, and even economic risks that a condom will not prevent. Youth sex often leads to a pattern of failed relationships that carries on into adulthood. It can contribute toward increased depression and suicide rates, increases sexual exposure to drugs, alcohol, domestic violence, and sex trafficking, and often interferes with achieving life goals. Alternatively, youth who voluntarily refrain from non-marital sex tend to have better physical, emotional, relational, and even economic health, and reduced exposure to drugs, alcohol, domestic violence, sex trafficking, often leading to a lifelong and generational blessings. So, is youth sex a risk? Yes. Question 2. Are youth sexually active? A 2020 Canadian Pediatric Report indicates youth sexual activity. The upcoming chart reports sexual behavior for 14 and 16-year-olds. The legend on the right indicates the chart indicates sexual activity in 5 areas: intercourse, oral sex, deep kissing, sexual touch above the waist, sexual touch below the waist, including anal sex. When we look at the sexual activity for 14-year-olds, the rate of intercourse is quite low, 9%, but the activity in other sexual behaviors is higher. The chart for 16-year-old youth indicates that as youth age, sexual activity does increase. That said, intercourse levels are 24%, indicating 76% of youth are not engaging in intercourse. Church families often say, though, our kids attend church. They would not be involved in sex. Research shows that the rate of sexual activity for church youth ages 15 to 17 is only slightly lower than non-church youth. Conclusion, are you sexually active? Yes, some are, and it does increase with age. Question 3. What are the strategies to guide youth in this important area of life? There are 2 primary approaches: comprehensive sex ed and sexual risk avoidance. Comprehensive sex education was developed over the last 50 years in the United States. CSE is the approach embraced by culture and continues to be the strategy guiding sexual health education in our government schools. Comprehensive sex ed became dominant in Canadian public schools in the mid-1990s when instruction in condoms was incorporated into school curriculum in many school boards. The second approach, sexual risk avoidance, has been developing over the past 20 years as a more optimal sexual health alternative. It is based upon the public health primary prevention model, which is explained further in a follow-up video. Let's look first into comprehensive sex education. The premise of comprehensive sex education is that many youth will be sexually active, so it is necessary to equip all youth to reduce the risk and have satisfying sexual relations. In addition to the typical health-related topics such as puberty and conception, the sexuality topics in a CSE program include condom use, alternative sexual activities, the importance of mutual satisfaction, the importance of consent, and how to end a relationship. Yes, if you're going to begin engaging in intimate relations early in life, you will have many different relationships. So it will be important to end them as amicably as possible. Sexual risk avoidance education is not the old abstinence, just say no education, which was based upon moral values. While comprehensive sex ed attempts to reduce risk, sexual risk avoidance is based upon the risk avoidance public health model. When it comes to at-risk activities like smoking or drugs, public health begins with the primary prevention approach. Teach about the risks and develop refusal skills to avoid the activity. The premise of sexual risk avoidance education is that most youth, particularly younger ones, are not sexually active, and many who are would prefer not to be. So, sexual risk avoidance provides accurate, science-based knowledge and skills that are in alignment with the feelings and the will of the children. The goal is to equip them to protect their future by avoiding sex until marriage. This approach is growing and being embraced internationally. The United States Department of Health requirements for sexual risk avoidance education include developing understanding of the negative impact of youth sex, the social, psychological, health, and economic gains that can be realized by avoiding youth sex, how to have healthy, meaningful relationships without sex, why marriage really does matter, and the development of refusal skills to be able to resist sexual coercion. In addition to the science and medical information, PEACE includes the biblical foundations for sex. We incorporate a Christian perspective because God created our bodies and sex. And the reality is that the science and the medical research and the guidelines in Scripture are congruent. So, conclusion, what are the approaches to sex ed? Comprehensive sex ed and sexual risk avoidance. PEACE embraces the sexual risk avoidance approach. We have found 25 peer-reviewed studies showing that students in SRA classes are more likely to delay sex, and if they had been sexually active, they are more likely to discontinue. Next question, who should be providing or guiding our youth on this important life issue? Youth gain information about sexuality from 3 primary sources: parents and family, faith communities, and secular society, including school curriculum, internet, porn, movies, and other forms of media. Research indicates that the most effective agents of influence over youth sexual decisions are parents and faith communities. But a vast proportion of parents and faith leaders feel ill-equipped. Sometimes people feel this way because of guilt. We may not have made the healthiest decisions as youth. So who are we to provide advice? The reality is that when we were growing up, We did not have all the research and education that would encourage us to make the healthiest decision. Unfortunately, because parents and faith communities feel ill-equipped, there is a void of information for our kids. And when kids have questions and the parents have not been open to discuss, secular society, such as internet porn, becomes the default source of information. So, who should be guiding our youth? It should be parents and faith communities, but they feel ill-equipped. And that is where Peace fits. Peace has and is developing the resources to provide parents, church, and youth leaders with the evidence to empower youth to make the healthiest decisions and to protect their future. At the very beginning, I promised a bonus question. If you are a parent of a young child wondering when should instruction in sexuality begin, well, it's never too early. Daycare centers and our schools are beginning to instruct our children in comprehensive sex ed and sexual choice beginning as early as 3 years of age. Parents, if you want your children to make optimal sexual decisions, you need to be the first choice and the first source of information. You can begin with this storybook, The Story of Me, designed for children ages 3 to 5 years. Using an age-appropriate language, The Story of Me explains the growth of a child inside the mother's body, birth of a child, how breastfeeding works, what makes girls and boy babies different, and bodily autonomy and privacy. Framing everything within the larger story of God's wonderful design, the child learns that God is the giver of life. The book is available on the Peace Ontario website. Well, let's wrap it up. In this introductory video in the Targeting Success for Youth series, we briefly addressed 4 questions that many parents ask us. The next videos in the Targeting Success series expand on these questions. I invite you to watch the ones that interest you. Thank you for your interest in this important issue. If this video has been helpful, please click the like button and you will be notified when new videos are available. Peace is dedicated to equipping parents and youth leaders to empower youth with the knowledge and the skills to protect their future by making optimal sexual health decisions. If you have an issue or a challenge that you or your child is facing, please send us an email. You can be sure that others share the same concerns, and we may be able to develop a resource to help. I look forward to connecting with you in the next video. Take care, and God bless you.